So good morning if you're in the UK, good afternoon if you're further east in the world, and if you're out to the west over in the US, hopefully you're just about waking up now. It's coffee time in the UK, so I thought I'd just take this opportunity and come and talk to you again. And this week I'm focusing on awareness of cycles, patterns, trends, and seasonality. It's a big old topic. But what we're going to hopefully explore today is the idea of how we are all affected by cycles. And cycles come in all different shapes and forms and guises, and they do fundamentally affect our world, both in leisure and particularly when we're at work. And I want to explore that in a seminar, free webinar that I'm giving this Friday the 28th, 1 p.m. UK time. You can register for this one at marketingcollege.com/events. And the topic is seasonality in marketing. Now, if you're in any kind of commercial organization or commercial role, if you're in marketing, business development, comms, if you're an entrepreneur starting out or setting up a new business, you need to know, and this is a need to know basis, you need to know the seasonality, trends and cycles and patterns in your marketplace or the sector that you're looking to target. There's huge amounts of opportunity in learning and understanding seasonality. It's a topic I've been fascinated by for many, many years, and it's now kind of spilling over for me from kind of like a work topic into a personal life scenario and topic as well. So what I want to get us to explore over the next sort of few days is how we are affected by cycles. So when I talk about cycles, what are we actually talking about? Well, obviously there are many, many different types of cycles. There's cycles in nature, there's human cycles, and of course the work cycles that I've been talking about. So let's just think of some examples here, and some of these may resonate with you. Some of these you may think, I hadn't really thought about that or how it might affect me. But believe me, all of these things, to a greater or lesser extent, will affect your world and your day-to-day living, and the awareness and abundance that we've been talking about as the mantra for this year. So let's talk about nature cycles to start with, because all of these will definitely fundamentally affect what's going on in your world. So what kind of cycles are there in nature? Well, just as a few examples, obviously there's the obvious one of the moon. You know, the moon has a cycle. The moon goes through, in effect, what we would sort of term like a monthly cycle. It goes from new moon to full moon and all the way around again. So it continuously has a cycle and is in a scenario that is very, very much sort of affecting us and altering maybe mood, maybe the dynamic that we're feeling, the energy patterns. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on, which is really, really interesting to be thinking about. Another one is obviously the seasons, and depending where you are in the world, to a greater or lesser extent, the seasons can be very, very variable. If you're somewhere near the equator, the seasons probably are less effective on you. Whereas actually, if you're sort of further from the equator, seasons can be very, very marked. Here in the UK, they're pretty dynamic. I mean, we do see a relative difference between summer and winter, but in some territories, some countries in the world, clearly those seasonal differences are huge. So how are those impacting on you, both professionally and personally? Weather patterns, people don't think of weather necessarily as being a cycle, but it definitely is. Where the jet stream here in the UK, where the jet stream is hitting us, it goes in cyclical patterns. And of course, that will affect our weather and affects a whole bunch of other related things as well. And there's, of course, all of the natural cycles in plants, for example, and the kind of the life and death life cycle of a plant and trees and everything that we consume as human beings. In human cycles, it gets really interesting. Circadian rhythms, if you've never encountered circadian rhythms, they could be a little bit of an indicator as to why some days you feel ready to go, raring to go. You've got all the energy in the world, you're good to go, and everything seems to just flow. And other days, just too much like hard work. Could be circadian rhythm. There could be other things that are coming into play here, but another cycle that fundamentally affects our energy flow, professionally and personally. Menstrual cycles as well, obviously. If you're female, the menstrual cycle can have a significant impact, and it's a predictable thing that happens, generally each and every month, along with hormonal patterns. We're all affected by hormones. Some people more so, some people less so. But hormones also have a cyclical pattern to them. And of course, there's the clear one, the sleeping and waking pattern that we as human beings need to rest, we need to recharge, we need to kind of process the activities of the day, and all of this happens within sleep. So we have sleep patterns to cope with as well. And then there are the patterns which, as human beings and as societies and communities, we kind of artificially create for our convenience and to make life a little bit more predictable. So things like our calendars, there are many calendars, many different ways of measuring and assessing time across the world. Another trend or loop or cycle or cyclical seasonality that we're focusing on there. And things like festivals celebrating seasonality, celebrating these cycles in periodic fashion. All of these things can have a fundamental impact on our well-being, how we're feeling, the opportunities that present themselves to us, both professionally and personally. So they are really, really interesting concepts, really, to get on board with. And it was a topic that I covered in a webinar that I recorded with Naomi Stone on Monday, which was all about nature and well-being. So the effect of nature on well-being. And if you're interested in hearing about that and how some of this kind of cyclical activity within nature can impact on you and your well-being, head over to anchor.fm/Neil Wilkins, and you can listen to that on your favorite podcast station or platform or application. So we're seeing this come across, this whole idea of cycles and seasonality. It comes across to us, whether we choose to accept it, whether we choose to kind of recognize it and become aware and use it, it comes across to us literally every single day. And later this week, because this is a topic I'm going to be focusing on, I'm going to bring this into more of a sort of a commercial and work sense, because seasonality in business, seasonality in your occupation, seasonality, as I'm going to talk about it in marketing, has a fundamental part to play in the success or challenges. I'm not going to use the word failure because we can all learn from the challenges and things that happen, possibly slightly less positive outcomes. All of these things are affected by seasonality. So if you're not factoring seasonality into the mix right now, it is something that can really, really kickstart the activity that you do. Now, you will see seasonality probably in the sales. Let's just touch on that. And I'll tell you a little bit about some of the things I'm going to be covering on Friday in the webinar, 1 p.m. UK time. Seasonality in marketing. So some of the things that we're going to talk about is the impact of economics. So, things like the stock market and how the seasonal and cyclical changes within the stock market can have a profound impact on your sector, on the marketplace that either you operate in or that you serve. So those can have big, big impacts. Knowing kind of the sort of the flow, if you like, of those cycles within your marketplace, because we're all different. We all operate in slightly different ways. But knowing how those things can impact on our business and our organizations and making it a little bit more forecastable, a little bit more predictable, can have a really, really profound impact on your strategic plans. So I'm going to go there. I'm going to touch on that stuff. There will also be, and again, some marketplaces see this hugely, the seasonal trends of consumption. In other words, when do people find your products or services more attractive? When do they have a high propensity to buy from you? When are they kind of more likely to engage with you? If you're not monitoring this stuff and you just hope that it's going to be predictable, you hope that it's going to be every month is going to be the same and you're going to see great success, well, this is going to be a bit of a wake-up call, because that is not how the world works. That is not how cycles and patterns work. And for some of us, we could be operating in marketplaces where the cycles are long, where the flow or the wave of activity is very, very long. So the period of that wave is hugely long. And we could be talking many, many years. In some industries, that is the case. Whereas in other industries, you can see patterns within a month. You can see that there are buying patterns early in the month that are different to mid-month, are different to the end of the month. We need to get our head around these things for our own purposes, to increase our efficiencies, to reduce wastage. There's a big sustainability thing going on here in really understanding how cycles affect your business. But also what it allows you to do, if you focus in on these seasonal trends, and of course we see these, when we are consumers as well. So, there are certain things you buy more of in the winter than you do in the summer, certain things that you buy more of in certain months than others. If you have a gift related business, then there will be those peaks and troughs of the festivals that will relate to the religion or the community that you're serving. So these things are hugely, hugely important, and they can hit us right, smack bang between the eyes if they are sort of fundamental to what we do. But there are some of the more subtle ones, the product life cycles. Every single product that has ever been created since the dawn of time has a life cycle journey. So if you think that you have a product that is immune to this, well, I've got some news for you. That is not the case. It just might be that your product life cycle is incredibly long. I've worked on some products that have reached maturity after kind of 30 to 40 years. I didn't work on them through the whole period of that time, but I was actually part of, and I'll share these with you in the webinar on Friday, products and services that have had a huge long life cycle. But for most people in most organizations, the life cycles tend to be just maybe a few years. So what comes next? If you know that these products are living a life cycle, so they are predictable in how they will emerge, how they will reach profitability, and then how they will decline, then we can do something with that. We can do something about it so that we're always having some form of control over kind of what comes next. And then it makes our marketing more effective. It makes our revenues more effective. It makes our profitability more predictable. Customer buying pattern, that's another thing that I really want to be focusing on. And this is something that we can begin to think about all these cycles right here today. So that's what I'm wanting you to do, is to kind of start to almost sort of become a little bit more aware and a bit more awake of the kind of patterns and cycles that are already impacting you. So customer buying patterns, what kind of trends do you see within your marketplace or within your organization? How are people consuming what it is you offer? This might be businesses, it could be actual consumers, because this applies to all of us, whether we're selling or marketing products or services, or maybe something different. We're just looking to kind of foster behavioral change, maybe. So how is that behavioral change impacted by what we do and when we do it? And it might even be that the patterns you can identify are down to an individual day. So there could be certain patterns and cycles that you see as you look and watch closely your customers during the period of one single day. It could be that they do something different with your product or service in the morning versus the afternoon versus the evening. But we need to know this. We need to get really intimate. I call this professional intimacy. And it's a really important sort of mindset to have when you're looking at cycles and the predictability of your marketplace and what is going on. Because once you really get into this, you can really, really drill down deeply to create professional intimacy that will basically educate your plans. It will inform your campaigns. It will give you opportunities for new projects that you might not normally have been aware of. So it is hugely important. Seasonality in marketing is what I'm calling this, but we will look at the whole range of different things, even to the point of some of the slightly off the wall things, which are, even the effects of solar flares. So the way that the sun creates solar flares and the impact that has in a relatively predictable way on our technologies and our human behaviors. There's a whole bunch of science behind this, but there's also some real practical stuff we can get involved in. So what I'd like you to do today is just think about, how are you affected by the cycles that impact you? Think about some of those ones that we were talking about personally. So the moon, the tides, the weather. All of these things are repeatable and predictable. How does your calendar, your diary, how does that impact you? Because again, it's on a cyclical basis. These things come back and repeat themselves. So just being really open to that in a personal sense. And in a practical business sense, what kinds of seasonality, in the broadest kind of definition of the word, are we being impacted by right here, right now in our business? So do we see customers buying in a certain cyclical way? Do we see the flow of our products going through a life cycle? Can we predict from what we see in the external world how those those subtle patterns and trends might impact on us in our organization. And then what are we going to do about it? We're going to talk about what we're going to do about it a little bit later on Friday in that webinar. And you can get hold of the webinar on the link below, which you will see is marketingcollege.com/events. And of course, this is something that is not going to go away. You can choose for it to go away. You can choose that you're not going to pay attention here, but it's going to pay attention to you. So I would really, really encourage you, and I would really invite you to come along and explore this with me. Just in the comment section, just a little comment through that has come through from Mark. And Mark says, interesting point about circadian rhythms, as sleep-wake cycles seem a bit disrupted at the moment. That's a really, really interesting point, Mark. Thank you for sharing that one. Yeah, I think for a lot of people, there is still uncertainty out there. There's still a lot of kind of stuff going on that is maybe the sort of the spin-off from the last couple of years of challenges that we've had both professionally and personally. And so I think this is now really the time. That's why I'm really, really passionate about this year being the year of awareness and abundance. We've got to get super aware of what is going on both within us, but also around us. And so today, and for the rest of this week, I'm inviting you to kind of think about the cycles, the rhythms, the trends, those kind of predictable things that we know are going on around us, and how those things might be able to sort of advise us and guide us on just being that little bit more aware, both professionally but also personally, so that we can get the best out of every day that we're living and every day we're working. That's kind of where we're going to go on Friday. So I do invite you to come along to the webinar. You do need to pre-register for this one. You can go along to marketingcollege.com/events. And the title of this very, very far-reaching topic on cycles and trends and seasonality is Seasonality in Marketing. That is the name of the topic, but we're going to go about all sorts of things from nature to the human cycles into work cycles as well. So I do hope you'll join me. I'm really looking forward to this one. As you can probably tell, I am quite passionate about this topic because I've just seen in lots of different ways, lots of different guises, how this can impact on all of us, but also what we can do to get the best gain from it. So that's what I'm going to share with you on Friday, 1 p.m. UK time. Go to marketingcollege.com/events. And I really, really hope that I'll see you there. Looking forward to it and hope you'll join me. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in a day or so's time.